Hey everybody, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're tackling something a lot of you guys have messaged us about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the story of Dominique Brown, HellooDomo, the Disney influencer.
Right.
And we're going to try and figure out, what really happened. All those headlines were kind of crazy.
Yeah, you see a lot of sensationalized stuff out there, for sure.
Exactly. So we want to cut through all that and get to the facts.
Sounds good.
So we've got a couple sources for this one.
Okay.
First, we're looking at the Mirror US article that broke the whole story, and then we'll jump into what people are saying on Reddit on that Sarnath the Onion thread.
Ooh, interesting combo.
Right. It
Right.
should be interesting to see what kind of idiots are floating around out there.
Definitely.
So Dominique Brown, HellooDomo, huge in the Disney online world.
I mean, she was everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Super bubbly personality, seemed like.
Yeah, and then this whole thing happens at a Christmas party.
It's just tragic, young woman like that.
Yeah. So let's set the scene. What do we know for sure?
So it was a party thrown by BoxLunch, that pop culture store,
Mm-hmm.
And it was at Vibiana, downtown LA, that old cathedral they use as an event space now. Super swanky.
Oh, yeah, I've seen pictures.
So she's there, and from what I'm reading, it sounds like she had a really bad allergic reaction, probably to peanuts.
And this is despite, being told the food was safe.
Right, that's what makes it extra messed up.
Yeah, that's where it gets complicated. The article mentions conflicting stories about what happened next.
Oh, like how?
Well, some sources say people were slow to react, maybe even taking pictures instead of helping her.
Oh, wow, seriously?
Yeah. But then there's this People magazine reporter who was actually at the party.
Okay.
And they said they saw her getting CPR right away and someone called 911 immediately.
So two totally different versions of what went down?
Exactly.
And the Reddit thread is going nuts about the whole taking pictures thing?
Figures.
Yeah, people are saying it's like influencer culture gone wrong. The Enneagram is more important than a human life.
I can see why people would jump to that conclusion.
Right, it feeds into that whole stereotype.
It does. But there's also this thing called the bystander effect. Have you heard of that?
I think so, but remind me.
So basically, the more people are around during an emergency, the less likely anyone is to step up and do something.
Really? Why is that?
I think it's because everyone assumes someone else is going to take care of it.
Oh, so you're at this party, music's blasting people everywhere.
Exactly. And then someone collapses and you think, oh, they probably just need a minute. Or someone else already called 911.
And while everyone's thinking that no one's actually doing anything.
It can be scary how easily that happens.
Okay, so we've got the scene, the party, the conflicting reports, this bystander effect thing lurking in the background.
It's a lot to unpack.
But let's talk about the allergy itself for a sec. How dangerous are peanut allergies? We hear about it all the time.
Peanut allergies, they're no joke.
Yeah.
In some cases, even tiny amounts can be life-threatening.
How tiny are we talking?
Like crumbs. Even the smell can trigger a reaction in some people.
Wow.
Yeah. And that reaction, we call it anaphylaxis.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically your body going haywire.
Haywire, how so?
Think of it like your immune system's hitting the panic button, even though it's just peanuts. It's like a cascade of symptoms.
And it can be fatal.
If someone doesn't get the right treatment quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
How quick are we talking here?
Minutes, not hours. It can be that fast.
Jeez. I had no idea it was that serious.
Yeah, it's definitely something to take seriously. And speaking of seriously, the Reddit thread got into this whole debate about peanut versus tree nut allergies.
Oh, yeah. I saw that some people were saying tree nuts are harder to avoid.
It's true. They can be hidden in so many things you wouldn't even think of.
Like what?
Certain sauces, baked goods. Even some lotions and shampoos can have tree nut oils in them.
So someone with a tree nut allergy has to be super vigilant?
Absolutely. Always reading labels, asking about ingredients. It can be exhausting.
And then there's the whole EpiPen cost thing that people were freaking out about.
Yeah, hundreds of dollars for a life-saving device. It's a tough pill to swallow. Right, shouldn't everyone have access to something that could save their life?
It's a huge debate. And this case just brings it to the forefront again.
It seems like there are so many layers to this story.
There are. It's not just about what happened at the party, but the bigger questions it raises.
Like what?
Like individual versus collective responsibility, the role of social media, the ethics of healthcare costs.
Yeah, it's a lot more than just a tragic accident.
Definitely. And that's where the real deep dive begins.
Oh, okay, hit me with it. It's easy to just point fingers, right? Oh, those people at the party should have done more.
It's a natural reaction.
But when you add in the bystander effect and that whole pressure cooker of social media, it gets kind of murky.
Yeah, the lines get blurred. for sure.
So, like, where's the line? When does personal responsibility end and collective responsibility begin?
That is the question, isn't it? I mean, we can't let individuals off the hook, but we also have to realize that the environment we create online and offline plays a role.
What do you mean?
Think of it like a crowded sidewalk. Okay, everyone's rushing, bumping into each other. Someone's bound to trip.
Okay, I'm with you.
But if everyone's moving slower, being mindful of their space, less likely someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
Right. Context matters.
So you're saying like social media and influencer culture, they're creating this sidewalk where people are more likely to trip up in an emergency.
It's a possibility, this constant need to document everything, to project this perfect image. It can make it hard to be present, to react authentically.
And then you add in the fear of being judged or canceled for doing the wrong thing.
Exactly. It makes people hesitate even more.
It makes me think about that whole EpiPen debate on Reddit. Remember someone saying restaurants and event spaces should have them mandatory?
Right, and it loops back to that individual versus collective responsibility thing.
Like, are people with allergies always going to have to be the ones to carry their meds and advocate for themselves?
Or should we as a society create systems that protect everyone, regardless of their health condition?
Man, reading those comments about the cost of EpiPens really got to me. My niece has a severe peanut allergy, and just going out to eat or to a party, it's a whole ordeal.
I can imagine it's a constant mental load.
Totally checking labels, asking about ingredients, making sure the EpiPen is accessible, always that fear in the back of your mind.
It shouldn't have to be that way.
No, it shouldn't.
Right.
What can we do, not just as individuals, but as like a community, to make things safer for people with allergies?
Education is key. Awareness, more consistent labeling practices, and maybe even policy changes like those discussed on Reddit.
Those are good starting points.
It all begins with dialogue, acknowledging the challenges, and working together.
Speaking of dialogue, what's the online world been saying since Dominique's passing?
The Disney influencer community has been hit hard.
I bet they were a tight-knit group.
There's a lot of grief and shock, especially among those who knew her personally or followed her online. She was loved.
And her brother's Instagram message was just heartbreaking.
It was so touching, thanking her fans, sharing how much joy she found connecting with them.
Really brings home the human cost of all of this.
It does.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of anger accusations flying around online.
That's social media for you.
It's understandable. People are hurting. They want answers. But we have to remember it's also a breeding ground for misinformation.
It's so easy to get caught up in the outrage, especially when you see those crazy headlines and heated comments.
Exactly, which is why it's crucial to be critical. Consumers of information don't just believe everything you read.
Easier said than done sometimes, though.
It is, but it's worth it. We also have to remember that everyone involved, from those at the party to those commenting online, they're all human beings.
It's easy to forget that when you're just reading text on a screen.
It is. But we have to try to approach these situations with empathy and an open mind, even if we disagree.
Good reminder, we've been focusing a lot on the negative aspects of this story. The tragedy, the blame, the social media frenzy.
And those are important parts to acknowledge. But we should also acknowledge the potential for positive change that's come out of this.
Like, what do you mean?
All these conversations about allergy awareness, bystander intervention, the role of social media, they're valuable, even if they're difficult.
So, like, out of this darkness, there's this sliver of hope, this chance for something better.
There is. What can we learn from Dominique's story to help us navigate similar situations? That's what we should be asking.
Yeah, good question. Dominique's story is a powerful reminder that life is fragile and unpredictable.
It is, and that our actions online and offline have consequences.
Sometimes life-altering consequences. So what can we do to actually make a difference?
Awareness is huge. Understanding the seriousness of allergies, recognizing anaphylaxis, being prepared to act in an emergency.
Okay, so be prepared. What else?
Be mindful of our online behavior. Be critical of the information we consume. Choose to spread kindness, not judgment.
Makes sense. And we have to have those uncomfortable conversations about responsibility, accountability, the kind of world we want to live in.
It's not always easy, but it's necessary.
You've given us a lot to think about. I'm sure our listeners are feeling it too.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, can we go back to the bystander effect for a sec? I want to know more about how to overcome it.
Sure thing.
What would you say to someone who wants to be more proactive in emergencies, but freezes up, from fear or not knowing what to do?
First, remember, you don't have to be a doctor to help. Sometimes the simplest actions can make all the difference.
Okay, so like what?
If you see someone having a severe allergic reaction, even calling 911 or asking if they have an EpiPen that can be life-saving.
So it's not about being a hero, it's about taking action.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're unsure what to do, call out to others' delicate tasks. Find someone with experience.
The more people who know what's going on, the better.
Right. And if you want to learn more about handling emergencies, there are tons of resources available online and in your community.
Oh, like what?
Taking a first aid or CPR class can give you the skills and confidence to act effectively when it matters most.
Knowledge is power. Right?
Exactly.
Yep.
And in this case, it can literally save lives.
I love that knowledge is power. That's a great takeaway from all of this.
It's been a heavy topic, but important.
We've covered a lot: the headlines, the social media stuff, the complexity of allergies, the psychology behind why people freeze up.
It's been quite the journey.
It has, but now it's time to bring it all home. Some final thoughts and key takeaways for our listeners. So much to unpack, right? We've talked about Dominique's passing the craziness online, the whole allergy thing, and even why people don't always help in emergencies.
Yeah, it's like all these different pieces of the puzzle.
Exactly. So where do we even begin to make sense of it all?
It shows how everything's connected. You can't separate people from their surroundings or the online world from real life.
Right, and it's tempting to just point fingers, but I think Dominique's story makes us think bigger, look for the patterns, and ask ourselves, how can we do better?
I like that. How can we do better?
And you talked about social media, how it can spread both truth and lies. And it feels like in this case, it's done both. We see the anger at those partygoers, but also people demanding change, talking about EpiPens, sharing their sadness for Dominique. It's almost like social media is this mirror reflecting all our good and bad sides.
Powerful image.
Mm.
It's true. We see those gut reactions, the urge to blame someone, but also the empathy, the desire to learn and grow. It's like Dominique's story has forced us to have these important conversations that we might have avoided otherwise.
Yeah, that petition to make EpiPens mandatory in restaurants, remember? It's causing such a debate on Reddit. Some are all for it, others are worried about the logistics, the cost. It's crazy how one tragic event can make us face these bigger issues.
And that's where critical thinking comes in. It's easy to just get swept up in the emotions, to react and share without really thinking things through. But we have to stop, ask questions, consider different viewpoints. That's what this deep dive is all about, giving you the tools to do just that.
I love that. A mental toolkit for our listeners to navigate not just this story, but all the info that's thrown at them constantly. So what's the most important tool in that kit?
I'd say it's a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Be curious enough to dig deeper, to question the simple answers, but be skeptical enough to not believe everything you see, especially online where everyone's trying to get your attention with the most shocking stuff.
Curious but skeptical. Okay, got it. What else? How can we break out of that bystander mentality we talked about?
That's a tough one. It's about changing our mindset.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking someone else will do it, start asking yourself, what can I do? Even little things make a difference.
Like what?
Maybe you offer someone a glass of water if they look sick, or you check in on a friend who seems down, or you speak up when you see something wrong happening.
Little things add up for sure. And I keep thinking about Dominique's brother's message on Instagram. Even with all the sadness, he focused on her joy, her connection with fans, the community she built. It's a good reminder that even though we can't control everything in life, we can choose how we react, how we remember, how we keep going. It's so true. And in a world that feels so divided and messy, that's a powerful message. Focus on building connections, understanding each other, choosing kindness, even when it's tough.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. We've gone through some heavy stuff today, but we've also found some real wisdom and hope along the way.
Definitely. It's been great diving deep with you and our listeners.
As we close out this episode, here's a final thought. How can you take what we've learned and use it in your own life? What small changes can you make to be more informed, more prepared, more compassionate? Maybe you learn basic first aid, or you carry a spare EpiPen, or you just pay closer attention to the people around you.
The world needs more people who are willing to step up to ask questions to make a difference.
Couldn't agree more. And that starts with each and every one of us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic. But until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay kind.